What's good, YouTube? I'm back with another video. So JD Vance went. I don't know what podcast he went on. He went on a podcast to defend the deal with Iran and discuss the policies and the pretty much admits Israel's control over the United States. You know he's lying about a lot of shit. So let's see what he's saying.
Our policy right now, what we're trying to accomplish is get the straits open, ensure the free flow of oil and gas. Obviously, we want to keep the Iranians from having a nuclear weapons program and using the tools of diplomacy and military power to accomplish that.
Well, the narrative is that Israel has a very disproportionate effect on American politics.
Yeah, I see that. I see that narrative. I mean, look, do they try to influence American politics? Yes. But like I said earlier, a lot of other countries do.
Well, call me a masochist, but I just got done watching the Joe Rogan interview with JD Vance, at least the foreign policy portions of it. And if you ask me, he utterly humiliated himself on two major areas pertaining to this war. One, the Iran war in general, and the second, Israel's influence over the United States government. He actually takes some pointed questions from Rogan, specifically whether he would have launched this war in the same way Trump did, knowing what we know now, and whether Israel truly does have disproportionate control over the U.S. political system. I think he flounders on both questions, and there's some real shortcomings in his cowardly answers, but you be the judge in a second. Let's take a look. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hype it if you can.
I think that the goal is certainly good, which is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And I think that there are obviously a lot of questions about how best to achieve that. There's both a short-term and a long-term piece of it. I think the short-term piece of it is effectively what's already been done, which is you destroy the nuclear sites and you destroy and eliminate the ability to rebuild the nuclear sites. I think there's a longer-term thing, which is where like a lot of the debate is focused on right now, which is that building a nuclear program is hard, but it's not impossible. And it's expensive, but it's actually not even that expensive if you look at, I mean, you could go on YouTube right now and find out how to build an atomic bomb. So part of our Iran policy, and this is where I get frustrated with the people who say you should never negotiate with Iran, part of our Iran policy is like solving the long-term problem. That if we could create the sort of circumstance where Iran would commit not just to not have a nuclear weapon right now, but over the long term to not try to rebuild that capacity, like, yeah, I think that is a good and valuable thing.
If it was your call, would you have done exactly the same thing?
Well, what did the president said publicly that JD was less enthusiastic about it, I think was the exact phrase that he used. I mean, my attitude towards this, man, as you know, is the vice president, I'm not a public commentator.
You know, I wish you would just answer the damn question. I wish you would just answer it and not try to beat around the bush, beat around the question. Just answer the fucking question. Would you have done the same thing Trump have done in this situation with Iran? That's it. Yes or no? That's all.
Like, my job is to give the best advice I can to the President of the United States. I think he's said a little bit about what that advice was. But once the president makes a decision, so long as I think that it's, you know, legal and ethical and all that stuff, and I certainly think whether you agree or disagree with it, what we've done has been legal. My attitude towards it is I try to make it as successful as possible. And I've got friends, of course. I think, you know, you've expressed some skepticism of this. I've got a lot of friends, both in private and public, who've expressed skepticism of this, who say, well, this is terrible, we disagree with the decision, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a public commentator. My approach to this is not to Monday morning quarterback a decision that was made 3 months ago. My approach to it is to try to make it as successful as possible, which is why I've poured my heart and soul into these negotiations, which is why I've tried to make that goal, Iran not having a nuclear weapon, something that's not true both, not just now, but is true in the long term. And that's the way that I try to approach it.
All right, so this is going to be his answer all the way up till 2028. But to answer the question, there really isn't that many questions looming around how best to stop them from acquiring a nuclear weapon. You had the JCPOA, a rigid regimes inspection layer that the United States orchestrated from 2015 to 2018. It was shredded by Trump. By all accounts, even Congress, the intelligence community, etc., Iran didn't try to stealthily build nuclear weapons during that time. Instead, Trump colluded with Netanyahu to shred that, setting the stage for this war, and that is the way to prevent them from acquiring a nuke. That's always been.
But I don't even think Trump was the one that initiated destroying Obama's deal. Now, I don't think he was the one that even was like, yeah, you know what? Let's rip up Obama's deal, then let you go to war with Iran. I think it was Israel. I think Israel then did not agree with Obama's policies and wanted Trump to change it. And that's why he ripped up Obama's deal and said, okay, Iran can't have no nukes. We're going to war. And I think he did behind Israel.
The way. At one point, Trump said that's what we're going to do coming into this second term. We're going to have negotiations with the Iranians to create maybe a more rigid JCPOA type agreement. So no, there's not many questions about that. And actually, the United States has done everything it possibly can in launching this war to incentivize them now to try to acquire them. If I'm an Iranian nationalist that is advising the Ayatollahs, I'd say fast track a nuke. Take the North Korea model rather than the Libya model, where Gaddafi gave up his nuclear weapons. He got sodomized with the bayonet in a NATO coalition and uprising that was done through the orchestration of the United States, whereas Kim Jong-il lives to tell another tale, lives another day to do it. That is what the United States has done. So ironically, the United States has inspired factions within Iran to support acquiring a nuke for the first time. Why wouldn't you? That's the ultimate hedge against U.S. treachery and Israeli treachery. And second from that is the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, another problem caused by the launching of this war. And he can say, hey, you know, I'm here to try to solve the problem now, but your administration was willing to sabotage the deal that you put your name behind, that deal that you went on the talk shows to kind of sell to the public. So what does that say about you and this administration? This kind of cowardly response is not going to do him any favors going into 2028 when many people have him as their top candidate for the presidency. He's going to be tarnished by this, and it's because of his failures in propagandizing the idea that Iran was on the cusp of acquiring a nuke. They weren't, and even the CIA, the IC in general, said that they weren't whatsoever.
So what is going on with Iran where it seems like the president keeps saying that a deal's been reached, negotiations have been successful, and then it all falls apart and we start bombing them again?
Yeah, so how long do we have here? Because this is a long
got as much time as you need.
So I have to explain a couple of things in the background so you sort of fully appreciate, people fully appreciate what's going on here. So number one, it's a bit of a simplification, but you have two elements within the Iranian system. You have, and you sometimes hear hawkish Americans say this, that they're all crazy people. They want to bring about, you know, the 12th Imam and the apocalypse and all that stuff. Right. There are people in Iran who believe that. They're also pragmatists. You've got the crazy people, you've got the pragmatists, okay? So when we struck this MOU, and really what the MOU says, and it was misrepresented more than almost anything that I've ever worked on in public life. What it says is Iran is going to open the Strait of Hormuz, the violence is going to stop, and then we're going to negotiate to see if we can come to a broader deal on the long-term nuclear issue. That's what we wanted. And what the Iranians wanted, of course, was long-term economic and sanctions relief. Now, here's the problem with where we are right now. And I guess my summary view, Joe, is that I
don't see a problem with that. I don't see a problem with that. If Iran is saying they'll get rid of nukes just for economical relief, I don't see a problem. Remove sanctions. That's it. Remove some or lower the sanctions, or make trade. Like, okay, cool. We lower the sanction if you give us oil, like or some shit like trade. So I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem there. They saying no, okay, we get rid of nukes.
Can't predict the future. I don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I think fundamentally we are on the right trajectory. It's just going to be really messy, and there's going to be a lot of stops and starts. So what happens? The first week after we sign the MOU, we get 20 million barrels a day of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it was before the war. The price of oil comes way down, and there are elements, the hardliners in the Iranian system kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, oh shit. Did we just give away our major leverage point? Screw nuclear weapons. We just gave away the SO in this MOU. And so there was this kind of freak out in their system. So they shot at a couple ships. We responded. And I think that's entirely appropriate, of course. If they're going to shoot at ships,
Yep.
we are going to shoot at the people who are shooting at the ships, or we're going to destroy the facilities that they're using to shoot at ships.
Okay, what he leaves out is actually the United States worked on a clandestine agreement with Oman to use the Strait of Hormuz and bypass any tolls. And that was part of the MOU, is that Iran couldn't charge tolls in the first 60 days, but the United States was trying to take a back route out of what that stipulation was, as the United States, through supplying Israel with weapons for its campaign in Lebanon, did violate brazenly point 1 of the MOU. He's not going to mention that whatsoever, but the United States did not use any leverage, any threatening of withholding aid to get the Israelis out of Lebanon. They're still boasting about being there. They're pushing in further, and they're boasting about annexing southern Lebanon beneath the Litani River for the Greater Israel Project, something that we're told is a conspiracy theory but seems to be very popularly supported outwardly by the Likudniks in Israel. And it's really fancy to hear him say that there's crazy people in Iran. And what he means by that is the people that actually fight back against a war of choice by the United States and Israel. Those are the crazy people he's talking about. But say Israel, the so-called vassal of the United States, it often seems like the United States is the vassal of Israel, especially in this theater of war, though, can go and kill 100,000 people in Gaza, maybe more, lots of people displaced. It's not really completely known how many people have been killed, massacred.
I feel like they massacred easily over 100K. Easily. They've been doing this shit for a long time. Easily over 100K. They flattened Gaza. They let nobody leave. People couldn't escape. They couldn't go nowhere. Other countries not letting immigrants come in and refugees come in, but they're bombing them niggas, bro. They're bombing them. And it's even they looking for Hamas. Whatever whatever situation may be, bro, they're bombing them. This is what y'all do. Now you go go to a store, get a bottle of Coke or Dr. Pepper or a bottle of pop, some plastic bottle, right? Okay. Undo the top. Okay. Take some Mentos. Drop a package of Mentos in that motherfucker. Hurry up. I mean, you have to be somewhat skilled on hand-eye coordination. Hurry up and screw the top back on and shake that motherfucker. Go to your backyard and throw it on your backyard of grass. And tell me what happens. That's how it look in Gaza. This is literally what it is. The Coke, the bottle is considered the bomb. You're considered the jet. And your backyard is considered the Gaza. It's all flattened. You throw the Coke bottle blows up and shoot pop everywhere and make a little damage wherever around it. Not a lot of damage. All we're gonna do is make damage into the ground because it's flat. They have flat in Gaza is flat. They flatten them niggas. They keep doing it.
Displaced, etc., and that's just Israel defending itself. No, this is treachery on behalf of the U.S. empire.
So that happens. Okay, and then the Iranians are like, oh, no, fine. You're right. We shouldn't have been shooting at ships. So then they come back to the table. And there's a few more days of negotiation. And then the phase that they're in right now is the hardliners have really, really reacted strongly to all the oil that's coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. And they've basically said, we're going to try to shut this thing down. We're scared about losing our leverage. Now, the pragmatists in their system are saying this was a mistake. Let's keep on talking. And again, do I know how this is ultimately going to shake out? Of course I don't. But what we're doing is a delicate diplomatic dance where we're using economic leverage points, we're using carrots and sticks, we're trying to talk to the pragmatists, and then, of course, when they commit acts of violence, we're responding to it. And all those things are happening simultaneously to get us on a better trajectory. Now, that said, yes, right now there's shooting right now. Last night they shot at some ships. But with all that said, is their nuclear program still destroyed? Yes. Are the straits not necessarily fully pre-war traffic, but are we getting enough oil and gas out of the Strait of Hormuz to prevent a worldwide energy crisis?
No. We're damn near teeter-tottering on it. It's not, oh yeah, we get enough gas and oil to prevent a world crisis. No, we're literally teeter-tottering. There's not no, oh, it's more so we got some, or no, it's like we about to be like, bro, nigga, we don't have any.
Yes.
All right, answering both those questions in the affirmative means that the United States can just leave then. If they don't have nuclear weapons, and you said that that was your aim, leave. If the strait is quasi-opened, or at least opened enough to your likability rating, or whatever you want to call it, you can leave. But they won't leave. They're staying there for Israel's territorial ambitions. That's exactly what this is. Joe Kent told the truth about it, and JD Vance will make excuses about it. That's the truth.
And all of these things are happening in the context of the broader negotiation over the nuclear program. You never know where this is ultimately going to end up, but that's where we are. And then can I just say one other thing about this? Because there are people, you see Mike Pence, who's sort of a super hawk, my predecessor, who say this. There are people, who are super hawkish in the American system who have attacked the deal and frankly, in some ways have tried to derail the deal. And what I always say to those people is, what is your proposal? What is your actual argument? So just take the Strait of Hormuz, like the narrowest, but in some ways the most important part of this back and forth right now. Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. To the extent you shut it down, you shut down 25% of the world's energy supply. Okay? Man. Joe, you could take $100,000 and go buy a bunch of drones on the black market and post yourself on an island in the Strait of Hormuz or near it, and you could fire drones at those ships. Okay? Now, what does that mean? Some oil and gas is still going to get out because some ships and some ship captains are going to say, screw you. Now, the United States can help that, right? We can shoot down some of those drones. We can shoot down some of those missiles, and so we can facilitate the flow of traffic. But the people who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians, the reason why that's fundamentally idiotic is because so long as you have some person who's willing to fire off a few cheap drones, you're going to have some ship captains who say, no, we're not willing to do this.
All right, so first of all, you don't need a military presence there to keep the ships flowing through. Before the United States was there and engaged in a war in Iran, it was open. It's not necessary whatsoever to help anything by being there. Again, it's not for prosperity that the United States is in the region, is firing ballistic missiles, bombing Iran. I think there's over 16,000 strikes that have been done at this point. I'm with them on saying, like, hey, what's your plan? Because the neocons and ardent Zionists, more ardent than him even, don't have a plan whatsoever. But what he said about undermining the deal, who in reality has actually undermined the MOU? It's been your administration. It's been President Trump who showed no willingness to dig in his heels behind this, to actually use U.S. leverage against Israel for once, because he doesn't, he supposedly has it, but he never utilizes it. Miriam Adelson seems to pull those levers instead of Donald Trump, and that's why. So it is the Trump administration that's undermined the deal in reality, even though, yeah, of course, the ardent Zionists wanted it to be undermined. They would have, criticism for anything less than the utter annihilation of all of Israel's adversaries on the bankroll of the United States, with our wealth extorted from us to fund that, with our wealth being used for the genocides that Netanyahu wants for the Greater Israel Project.
So we got to kind of use all tools at our disposal. The military is one tool, but diplomacy is another tool. And I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. Well, then what is your proposal to get people to stop shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? You can bomb them.
Leave. That's my proposal. It doesn't take any kind of deal. It doesn't take art of the deal style New York Trump real estate mogul strategy. It takes leaving. It takes...
Bro, just leave. What you gotta do is just leave. They said they back out of nukes. They just want help with their economy. Help them grow back, help them grow economy-wise, build a better relationship, and leave. Leave. But all it is Israel want to expand. Israel want to expand. They're expanding in Lebanon. They just took Gaza over. They're trying to expand. They're trying to expand to take over the Middle East. They're trying to become the United States in the Middle East, pretty much. They're trying to take over.
cutting the connection with Israel. Sever the umbilical cord. Take the United States bases out of there. They're liabilities. They're not assets. Bring every single U.S. troop home. Stop funding Israel. Free the United States from Israel. That's my solution.
You can take away their radar.
Okay, I wouldn't say remove. I wouldn't say remove American bases from the Middle East. I would say I would say remove some. Like you can remove some for sure, but I'll still have eyes in the Middle East for sure. Like I'll for sure still have eyes in the Middle East, and for sure, that's just not even because of the Muslim Arabic countries. That's not even because of that. That's just because dealing with Russia and China. You still would want some type of closeness towards them, and but that's a whole nother story.
Or you can take away some of their drones and some of their missiles, but it's just too easy to fire at ships in the straits. So you've got to actually be willing to talk and to try to figure out the problem.
What is their proposal? The people that think you shouldn't negotiate with Iran.
I think that their proposal is to bomb and bomb and bomb. And the honest view, Joe, is that they do not actually have a solution. If you actually ask them, what do you want us to do? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? You know, they'll say things like, we'll just bomb them to oblivion. Okay, we can do that. We can drop a lot of bombs, but what does that accomplish if there's still a crazy person who's still unwilling to shoot a few drones at the Strait of Hormuz? What the president has done, I think very, very capably, is said, we're going to use military force in this situation when it's connected to something we're trying to achieve. So if you shoot at ships, we're going to shoot at the facilities at which you used to shoot at the ships. But we're not just going to do something open-ended indefinitely. We're not just going to bomb and bomb and bomb. We're going to try to use our military force as one of the many tools that we have to solve the problem. And
yeah, okay, I'm somewhat with them here because ultimately they don't have good solutions. Some of them will say, I just want boots on the ground. Let's make this another Iraq. That's what Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin have said. And the latter has even proposed detonating a nuclear weapon there. That's their solution. That's how absurd this is. That's how catastrophic it could be to ignite a real World War III that goes beyond that.
Which is crazy. Like you have it's like that's crazy because a lot of them is old as shit. They're about to pass. They're about to die, and you don't understand. You're telling us for no reason, by the way, to drop troops on the ground. To have another Afghanistan, and to be honest, we should never went to war in Afghanistan. I see why people was against it. We should have never went to war in Afghanistan. It wasn't our fight. But then again, let's say you drop troops on the ground for Iran, make it another Afghanistan. Man, all these kids are gonna die. There's so many. We have so many troop soldiers on call. People who just go to the military. You know, so many people went to the military just to get a Camaro. A lot of people went to the military just for college. Some didn't know what the fuck. My friend Martin didn't know what the fuck to do in life. His parents were just annoying. He just went to the military. Like, bro, you went to the military to escape your parents. He's African. So you went to the military to escape your parents? Like, bro. And he does Navy. So it's... So we have people in there, just in there. My friend Keegan in there. He's a mechanic. He's Army. And they're in there. So if we go boots on the ground, that's a declaration of war. That means our factories, the United States, are gonna start making military equipment. Tax is going to change. I don't think martial law gonna happen, but tax is going to change, and a lot of stuff will be happening. It won't be a big change unless we get invaded. But it's going to be a change, for sure. Because we're declaring a war. All them troops going to die, bro. There's a lot of troops going to die. That's why I'm happy they didn't storm they didn't try to do that storming that island. They didn't do that. They about to do boots on the ground and storm the island. Like, I'm happy they didn't do all that shit. And, even then they talk about nuking. Why would you even bring that up? Why would you even bring up using a nuke? Especially you have some type of say-so in war. There's no point. The war has not been that serious to drop a nuke on Iran. Japan, I understand. Like, Japan, I get it. We literally had to do that. Like, at that point, they backdoored us. Nah. they backdoored us for no reason. We just chilling in Hawaii, chilling, and they wanted to become another Adolf, and they just hit us with some crazy shit. Not cool, bet. And then we drop a nuke. They ain't surrendered. We warned them. Drop another one. And they finally said, personally, now it depends. I would drop the third one. I most likely would drop the third one. I probably would have. I would drop the third one. I would end Japan. I would ended them. No, there's no way you backdoor me. Then you don't even give a fuck about how your civilians feel or about how your soldiers feel. Y'all committing suicide. Y'all crashing yourselves into our troops. So why should I give a fuck about leaving y'all alive? Why? Y'all killing yourselves anyways. Cool. So you gonna bomb yourself into us and we just chilling? Maybe we ain't doing shit. We ain't doing shit. You should backdoor us. Okay, bet. Yep, bet. Well, playing with all the innocent kids and people and families, a lot of them didn't want to even end the war. A lot of the civilians didn't even want to end the war. When I forgot the leader, or Shogun, whatever you call him, the leader at the time was on the radio saying, "Hey, let's surrender," blah blah blah. The civilian was like, "No, we're not surrendering. We're gonna continue to go." And a lot of them start committing suicide because of surrender. They would rather die than surrender. So at that point, how you gonna beat it? It will be another shit. How you gonna win? Right. So yeah, but hey, you know what? That's why I wasn't born that time. That's why I wasn't in charge. Yep, exactly why. So.
Region. That's how you do it right there. Follow the ardent neocons, the Ben Shapiros and Mark Levins. Others say, yeah, bomb them to smithereens. The United States has already bombed them 16,000 times. And to Vance's credit, it's true. No matter how many times you bomb, if you don't have a ground force, a rebel force willing to overthrow the government, or an internal mutiny, you're not going to get a regime change anyway. That's what Israel wants. Now, the United States doesn't seem to care as much about the regime change part, but it's not like that's going to get you a nuclear deal either. It's not like that's going to get you to open the Strait of Hormuz either. Peace, commerce, and negotiation is going to open up the Strait of Hormuz and dismantle the nuclear program, as it's always proven to do. But this administration's unwilling to heed the words of Jefferson and instead follows the path of George W. Bush, the ultimate neocon president that Trump was supposedly against when he looked his brother in the eye and said Iraq was a big fat mistake.
And obviously, like, I'm biased, but I think that's exactly the right approach. I think you have to read between the lines a little bit, because if you look at what Mike Pence or some of the conservative hawks, like people who voted for us but have been very critical of me, very critical of the administration, if you actually look at what they're proposing, they just want the military campaign to go on forever, and they can't actually identify what it is that they're trying to accomplish. None of them can identify what it is they're trying to accomplish. And I read two things between the lines. I think some of them want us to accomplish a complete change in the government of Iran, to topple the clerics and to replace those clerics with somebody who's, much friendlier. But like, look, what is our experience with doing that? It's
not
awful.
good.
It's
Yeah.
not good, right? And so, like, if the Iranian people want to rise up and change their government, that's up to them. But we're not going to send 150,000 ground troops in order to accomplish a change in a regime unless the people on the ground themselves want to accomplish that outcome.
Okay, every word of that was accurate. Every word that he just said. There hasn't been a good track record with the United States doing that in Iraq, in Syria, in Libya, in Somalia, in Afghanistan, replacing the Taliban with the Taliban, and all the other absurd examples that the United States has plunged us into debt, bloodshed, and inflation over. But here's the problem. Trump said that was an initial aim of the war. When he did his first speech, he said, Iranians, rise up and overthrow your government. We're there to assist you. This might be your only chance. I'm the only president that's been willing to do this. So that was an aim, and here you have J.D. Vance admitting, well, that's a stupid aim. It really contradicts the original points that Trump was trying to make in selling this to the public. It behooves us to remind ourselves of that, and now the war is over catastrophes unleashed directly because of it. Because of this conflict, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz.
Now, we're not going to send the troops in regardless, but like, to propose sending in the troops, you're basically saying that the U.S. military should do the job for the Iranian people, we're not in that business anymore. We're just not. And then I think a second outcome that people are, or whether they're aware of it or not, is what I call the Libya outcome. So if you look at the end result of our Libya policy after Gaddafi was killed by the Obama administration, by the way, again, a very stupid decision, what happened? Libya basically turned into a failed state. You had a refugee crisis. You had people pouring into Europe, pouring into other parts of Asia, other parts of Africa. You had a lot of violence, a lot of terrorism come from that. I do think that there are people who would like that to be the outcome in Iran. But then I say, again, what is in our interest? How is it in the United States' interest to have 94 million desperate people flooding into Europe, flooding into the United States, to have, sort of the terrorist infrastructure that can get established when you fan terrorists all over the world? We've run this experiment before.
That I'm with him 100%. But using the Libya
In this situation, I agree with him because it makes sense. It's like, okay, we just destroyed your country. We fucked it up. Now you're a refugee. But, we care about the people who innocent there, who don't want to hurt us. So we, as a country, not to look like warmongers, we do like some type of, I guess we do some type of law, or not a law, some type of like signing or deal. And we let about 30,000 refugees come in. Well, you're one of them refugees. You want revenge. Now you're the Joker. So now, as you're like this 10-year-old kid, lost his brother, sister, cousin, the whole family. Only he got left with his mom. His mom crying every day in America. Hate it here. But she has to come here. Crying every day. Sad every day. Can't get up, can't do nothing. She's trying to work. Now he saw his mom going from happy, shiny to sad, depressed, down, can't recover. And he blaming America. She blaming America. Blaming us. And your fault, boom, boom. About 15 years later, the kid can either be, this might sound crazy. It might sound crazy, but it's going on. It happens. The kid can be a terrorist. If he been searching up terrorist groups and he got into the black web, he knows certain discords, he knows certain websites and links. Now it's like, now he just commit like a Boston bombing again. He go shoot up a school. He go, I don't know, do some crazy shit. Or he can be a drug dealer. He can bring in heavy drugs to the United States. That's fuck people up. He can be an arms dealer. That's dangerous. That's really dangerous. He be an arms dealer. He can make bombs and stuff. There's really no touching the sky. Like, y'all think that shit be fake? That shit not fake? Like, the movie, that shit not fake? He can even manipulate and get into our government. It'd be harder because he's not original. He wasn't born here, but he can still. But you know how liberals are. You know how the leftists are. Everybody want to change shit. So now they're trying to say shit. You ain't gotta be born American to be in our government now. You can come from another country and just be in our government. You can just do it. That's what liberals want. So it's like, bro. So he become Joker, get our government like the New York City mayor. I don't know his background, but he Muslim. I don't agree with a Muslim running any type of other religion into our government. I think only Christians to run it. I don't think Catholics should run it. I think you only be Christians. We're a Christian country. I mean, well, we're not a Christian country. We're a country built off Christianity. But you get what I'm saying. But he in there though, and he talking. And you saw what happened with Sneeko and how they're acting in New York. That's New York. New York started the United States. That's one of the major starts of the United States in New York. Then they finally got New York on lock. So yeah, I get what he mean. Like, well, no, we should have that shit come over here. No.
Example is telling that he doesn't use the Syria example. Why? Well, Trump was involved in the Syria regime change operation, escalating that war and leading to the ascension of an al-Qaeda head chopper, al-Shara, who he's now closer with than Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. He's much more warm to Mamdani and al-Shara than he is to those America First patriots that I just mentioned. And it's a lesson for all of us. So he's not going to say Syria, but Libya is the example for what he said, that was an atrocity. You know, that is probably the right strategic example for him to cite, because Trump was involved in the Syrian regime change as well. So that is accurate. But then again, it behooves the United States not to launch these stupid military strikes when Israel is trying to consummate that goal, a destabilized state in Libya, just as they did in Syria, that they want in Iran now too.
And so our policy right now, what we're trying to accomplish is get the straits open, ensure the free flow of oil and gas. Obviously, we want to keep the Iranians from having a nuclear weapons program, and using the tools of diplomacy and military power to accomplish that.
Well, the narrative is that Israel has a very disproportionate effect on American politics.
Yeah, I see that. I see that narrative. I mean, I actually think that they look. Do they try to influence American politics? Yes, but like I said earlier, a lot of other countries do.
All right, I have to stop it right there. It is so ridiculous. A lot of other countries do try to influence the United States. Yes, that's true. That's obviously true. We're the world's superpower. It's becoming a more multipolar world, of course, but that is the end game for many regimes. They try to influence our political system. But how many are successful? How many of them actually do it? How many of them actually get us to bankroll their genocides and wars? We're not bankrolling Madagascar's genocides or Nepal's wars. We're not doing that whatsoever. It's the Israel lobby that has disproportionate influence over the United States government, because Iran just isn't our fight. There's no constituency to this outside of a few bloodthirsty psychopaths and board members of Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, JP Morgan, and Big Energy, etc. That's who the constituency for this is for. It's the most unpopular war ever in United States history, including Vietnam. That's what you have here. So for Vance to say, well, yeah, a lot of other countries try to influence the United States too, but that doesn't address the question that Rogan had. The narrative is that Israel has disproportionate influence over the United States government. It's something that Vance won't admit, because he's trying to walk a fine line that allows him to become president in 2028, when the American public, on one hand, is turning away from Israel, and yet the U.S. government is rigidly adhering to the Israel First doctrine in the most ironclad way in my entire lifetime. This response will not fly in 2028. I just do not think it will. It's preposterous. A lot of other countries do. Yeah, I've heard that narrative, but all sorts of these other countries that don't get us to bankroll their wars and genocides and have $4 billion shipped from our treasury to them every year. Yeah, good one.
I think
To the extent that Israel does,
I think
though?
some are better at it than others. I think the Israels are definitely more effective at it than most, but I wouldn't say that they're the only effective country by any means that tries to influence American politics. I just think you have to be self-aware about it.
Tries. He's inserting that word tries again, but this isn't about trying. It's about succeeding. Israel succeeds. It's mostly Israel. It's also Saudi Arabia to some extent. That's what the war in Yemen was. And Europe to some extent, subsidizing NATO and the proxy war against Russia on behalf of European maniacs that actually want that want a proxy war with a nuclear power, the power that's sitting on the most warheads in the world. That's what they want. Those are the countries that succeed. Yeah, sure. Probably.
You know what's crazy too? I've been like on the X, and I've been hearing like Russia trying to challenge NATO. Like, they're not saying they're going, like, first they said they're going to hit Poland. I was like, okay, I hear some rumor they talk about they hitting Poland. I don't know if it's true or not. I ain't gonna really say anything. Then I start reading more and more and more. Russia might hit NATO to test their power. And I'm like, he can do that, because I feel like the reason why he didn't really take Ukraine over, because he's holding back because of NATO. He don't want to deal with NATO. He might think NATO too strong. But with Iran's doing right now, and how Iran is handling the situation, the United States and Israel, NATO looking pretty weak. And the way the United States is arguing with Europe and NATO is not on stable relationships right now, and Trump's exposing NATO about all the money we pay U.S. is NATO itself, blah 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 blah. So Russia is thinking about challenging Europe pretty much. If the United States is talking about backing out of NATO, saying we're not gonna help you. If you need us, don't you ever need us, don't call on us. So now Russia talk about attacking NATO. That's some shit. Because that means they can do a full scale invading Ukraine. At that point, they got to worry about the borders of other countries attacking them, or the U.S. responding if the U.S. backs out of NATO, which Trump is trying damn near want to. That's some shit. We still got to deal with China. Right now, that's why Japan Prime Minister is shit. She's smart. She's smart. She sucked up her pride. She went to the United States. She sucked up her pride. She blessed or whatever she did and gave the flowers to the guy who dropped the bombs on Japan. Dishonorable, especially in her culture. A lot of Japanese people was pissed, and I get it. I'd be mad too. That's like Trump going to Japan and putting flowers on the pilots who bombed Pearl Harbor. Are going to Afghanistan and I think Afghanistan or whoever, Iraq, one of them, who did 9/11 and putting flowers on the pilot's grave. That's like what? That what a Japan minister did to us. She put the flowers or whatever she did on his grave or wherever she did some type of shit, like something like that. And that like that would make anybody mad, but she's smart for doing it. The reason being, she built a better relationship with Trump, and now Japan and China is having tension. But Japan got assistance from the United States. And the United States did a major deal with Indonesia. Indonesia. Major deal with Indonesia. Now we control that. Now we control that route of oil. And that fucking China up. So it's like, so now Japan, they broke whatever deal. They didn't break it, but they just stopped doing it. They didn't really break it. They just stopped doing it. They stopped the agreement. And about building, I think they couldn't like build a defense system or some shit. They couldn't like sell or build military stuff. They couldn't like do that. Now they can do it. Now they're building building military equipment. They can sell it now. I forgot who they just did a deal with somebody. They do a military deal. And because China is over here with North Korea doing shit in Japan's waters. They try to get Taiwan. So Thailand might get ready to fight. All of them might get ready to fight. And that will be the last war. That will be the biggest and last war. That's going to be the war in the Pacific. That will be the Pacific War. That's going to be a crazy war. It's going to be it'll be a Navy battle. It'll be a Navy battle. It's all going to be straight Navy. Submarine who have the best Navy. Who have best Navy. This is going to expose Navy fleets. In the Pacific War, there's no land. It'll be island battles and shit, and Navy fleets and the water and the air fleets. I don't think it's going to be like a World War II, World War I, fly everywhere type shit in the sky shooting each other. No, but I do think it's going to for sure be a boat Navy battle like that. Yeah, like a boat wise for sure. Yeah, jets and shit gonna be in the air, but it gonna be just bomb strikes and runs, air runs. That's all gonna be. And it'll be a lot of like hacking, drone strikes, but it's gonna be in the waters. It'll be in the waters, and but it will be a really, really, really impactful war with China. I know that for sure.
Only 200 of them try, Vance. Maybe more than that. I think there's slightly more than 200 countries now, but Israel's the one that succeeds the most.
I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a country of 9 million people. We have 330 million people. And so, of course, they're going to try to persuade Americans. They're going to try to move Americans in one direction or another. I think that's just the nature of the beast.
But it's more than that. The concern is that they're spying on American politicians, that there's concerns about funding, there's concerns about influence, there's concerns about whether or not politicians are, whether they're aligned with Israel or whether they're aligned with the United States first.
Well, there's certainly, like, I definitely get those concerns, but my sense is that the way that all foreign influence works in the United States is people try to manipulate American public opinion, and then from manipulating a public opinion, they try to get the outcomes that they want. I mean, this thing is a very good example of this.
Yeah, that's all they try to do, manipulate public opinion. It's called propaganda, and the pro-Israel propaganda machine is more powerful than any other countries. Yep. If you go by the metrics of, well, which other countries are supported, which other countries are subsidized. There's no country that's gotten more money from the U.S. Treasury since its inception than Israel, about $350 billion. And now in the NDAA, thankfully this was defeated by the Senate, within the House, only Thomas Massie on the Republican side voting against him, a hero, the Cato the Younger of our legislature, the modern Thomas Jefferson voting against it, and a bunch of Democrat opponents. Thank you to those people for defeating this out of the Senate bill. That's Section 219 that said that we are going to integrate our military apparatus with the Israeli one, giving the latter direct leverage over the U.S. military. So far, it's only been indirect, and it is palpable, it is tangible how much influence Israel has over our military, especially in the Middle East, especially for their hegemony they're trying to build on our backs through our money seized by our government and sent over there for genocides and wars. But this would tie the United States more directly to Israel. It's a slap in the face to our sovereignty. It's downright treasonous, not by the constitutional definition exactly. That's to wage war against the states and adhere to their enemies. They're in the plural because we're not supposed to have a national government. We're supposed to have a federal government. But that is what's going on here. And it's just so cute for him to keep saying try. He's trying to frame the parameters of the question in a way where it's something that we could all agree on. Yeah, lots of countries would want to influence the United States. But again, only one has this level of success. And the last year has proven that beyond a shadow of the doubt. That's what's awakening Americans to this issue for the first time in many cases. And look, a lot of these responses from Vance are indicative of a tightrope walk. He's walking a narrow path. On one end, the most diehard Zionists, the Ben Shapiro, Laura Loomers, Mark Levin's, and people like that despise Vance because he doesn't toe completely the Hasbara narrative, regime change in Iran at all costs. Netanyahu deserves to be worshipped. Not to the furthest extent. He's somewhere in between that and the real dissidents that despise this war. But who's he going to please with answers like this? What he's going to say is, hey, Israel does have some influence over the United States. Lots of other countries do too. And regime change doesn't work. It's not a good plan. It's not a good strategy. That's not what we're in the business for anymore. That's a pretty good answer. But then you're still waging this war and you're not coming out in disagreement over it. You're there to back it. Not to solve it. You're there to back the Trump regime waging this war. So his answers won't please those people that have always said that this war is a disaster, like me, like many of my viewers, that want to tell the truth. They want a Joe Kent in the vice presidency, not a Dick Cheney. Yep. That's what they want. So these tepid and cowardly responses are not going to do him any favors. And I think my friend Dave Smith put it absolutely best here in this tweet where he said, judging from the reaction, it seems to be the worst case scenario for J.D. Vance. I happen to agree. The Hawks are furious at him for being reasonable. I disagree to some extent. He's being reasonable. He is being more reasonable than the most fierce Hawks for sure, but not exactly reasonable. And he's not winning anyone over with his half-assed defense of this idiotic war. His political future looks bleak. I think that's the case. And a lot of people have argued, including Nick Fuentes, that actually Marco Rubio benefits from the crumbling of this MOU. I just don't think that. I think everyone associated with this administration, including Rubio, who is in some ways much more hawkish than Vance, at least in his stated political career, that's where his leanings have been, that he's going to be tainted by this too. So I think this is exactly right. I think anyone attached to this war is going to have a hard time telling a public that voted, in many cases, for Trump because of his pledge for no new wars, that suddenly J.D. Vance, this guy that propagandized the farcical Iranian nuclear weapon threat, which doesn't exist, whereas, Israel's sitting on something like 300 warheads, they're actually violating the NPT. Iran is not. but we can bankroll their wars for them because Miriam Adelson said so. It's not going to work very well, and I think that this is indicative of that. This whole thing's telling. There's a lot of time between now and 2028, but for now, I think you're going to see a blue wave, and I think no one is more responsible for undermining this deal than the Trump administration. You see how J.D. Vance tried to shift the blame when it came to undermining the deal to the war hawks, and I don't think he really named any outside of Mike Pence there, but he tried to shift the blame there. But Trump showed the ultimate willingness, the willingness that mattered to actually tank the deal. So that's where we're sitting. What do you guys think? Do you think I'm right about this assessment? Does J.D. Vance have a political future with this line of rhetoric about the war? You let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out Rogan's show, good interview when they talk foreign policy.
So, man, I don't know what's wrong with JD Vance. I think JD was just like, he was deflecting, yeah, like he never really answered the questions. And like, this war is really point, like, there's no point in it. There's really none. Like, I get the point, like, okay, they don't want them to have nukes, but bro, like, it's to the point where it's like, bro, we just need to leave, and we can't because of Israel. And like, Israel just have control over our government, and it's getting bad, and most likely going to be a Democrat who wins, because Republican Party looking horrible right now. And I honestly, pretty much whoever denounced Israel the most are going to win. Like, let's be real. Whoever talks about no more supporting Israel is going to win. They're going to win. Unless like JD Vance. If JD Vance does it, then it's going to be like, okay, but we don't believe in that. We don't believe in that. And yeah, that's my thoughts on it.